This month is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And while our topics will be focusing on concerns and issues surrounding that topic, we do want you to know that if you feel triggered or any of the information results in you needing some additional support or resources, please reach out to the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That number again is 1-800-799-7233. You can also access them online at thehotline.org, where they have a chat feature and the ability to research resources in your local area. While we all know that relationships can be difficult and hard, they should never be threatening and abusive. Thanks so much for listening. Let's get started.
Lift off and the clock has started.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 16 of Relationships Through the Looking Glass. I am really happy to say that we have some extremely interesting topics to discuss this month. This month being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. All of our topics in our episodes for this month will be highlighting different areas in that vein as we look at relationships within our community. And today is no different. Today we're going to be talking about something called trauma bond or trauma bonding in relationships. Now, a lot of people might have thrown that term around. We're going to unpackage it a little bit and see how that looks in relationships. See if there might be some signs that you might be in a trauma bond and ways to address it and remove yourself from it. But before we jump into this topic, I want to introduce back to Wonderland with us, Big Smash with Bet the House podcast. And I'm going to hand him the mic so he can tell us about what amazing thing he's got going on. Because I know he does, because I stalk him on Instagram. So I know he has a lot of stuff going on. So why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners what you got going on over there and how they can get connected.
Well, the only thing I'm really doing is just grinding. We working on season 8. Which starts tonight. We're dropping our 200th episode, drops tonight at midnight. So other than that, that's what I've really just been really focusing on, getting this episode out here and stepping up and starting doing more serious topics like you guys do, which I think is so dope. So appreciate for coming back here again, man. You know, anytime y'all need me, y'all know I'm coming running. So salute.
Thank you. And that's all 200 episodes. That's crazy.
Man.
That is crazy. Wow. How do you feel?
I feel like the best is yet to come. I'm still growing. So
that is outstanding.
I feel like you're only as good as your last episode, so we're gonna keep going.
There you go. I like that. I like that. Yeah, 200 episodes, Keisha. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Congratulations.
Yes, like all the hand claps, And Keisha, she's my co-host, my co-pilot, my wingman woman for this episode on this topic. Granted, and again, I do always have a disclosure that myself and Keisha do work full-time in the mental health field, but we really try to make sure that the podcasts that we do are at a level that everybody can use this information, and the day is not going to be any exception. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And then, Keisha, you know, when we talk about trauma bonds and toxicity in relationships, that's a rather important thing, but it's a phrase that people throw around a lot. Why do you think it's important that people really understand what a trauma bond is and what a toxic relationship is and how it can impact them in the long term?
I think people need to understand it so that they don't make mistakes in their current relationship or a new relationship. Sometimes when you don't understand what these things are and you connect with someone new, you begin to bring in, I would say, residue from that previous relationship into the new one. So I think it's important to know what these topics are. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who don't know what that means, the trauma bond, but they're actually behaving. They're showing behaviors and symptoms of it. So I think it is important that everybody understand and know, what this is.
Absolutely. And just for everybody to understand, for this particular conversation, I'm going to be referring to two very specific types of trauma bonds. The first one, a lot of people might have a familiarity with, and that's when it's connected to your upbringing, not having that security growing up, feeling that the insecurity, feeling that the not feeling connected or not feeling attached or neglected type of energy is normal. So when you go into relationships, you're looking for that because that's what's normal to you. So that example is one that's connected to an upbringing and in a sense, biologically speaking. The other one is a tad bit more hard to digest for some people. And I've actually had to take the stand and testify as an expert witness on the domestic violence case about the second example. Now, this is something where the interaction impacts the brain chemistry, impacts the dopamine or the reward centers in the brain when there's validation within the dysfunction. Okay, hear me out again. There's validation in the dysfunction where you get a hit, some similar to an addiction of the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So people right now are probably like, what? Yes, there are individuals who can become addicted to the highs and lows of a toxic relationship. And that's one of the bonds that's a little bit hard to digest, because when I'm speaking about domestic violence in a sense, sometimes people have a lot of questions on why doesn't this person stay? Why does the person stay? Why don't they leave? There's some, and a lot of people don't talk about it, there's an addiction to the chaos. So I've seen clients where everything calms down, but they need to get that hit, so they cause something to happen. Now, this is not an example or talking about victim blaming here, but this is a real thing that occurs, and we're going to kind of talk about that as well. So those are the two types of trauma bonds that we're going to talk about. The ones that originate or come from your upbringing, and you just recognize this neglect, this abuse, this chaotic type of connection as normal. So when you go into a relationship and you're not getting that, it doesn't feel right to you. And then the other one where there's brain chemistry involved, and it's a type of addiction. So I'm going to go to Big Smash on this question. So those two types of trauma bonds that I discussed, have you ever seen anyone who or witnessed relationships that kind of look like those could have been happening with those two individuals?
All the time. And I think it's more so you get in these relationships, trauma bonding type relationships, and it's usually you get immune to it. You know, you get stuck because you can try to reach out for help and it doesn't get you anywhere, or you just feel like this is truly love.
Right.
You know, this is truly love. This person truly loves me. And I want to say that it happens to men and women. It just isn't one-sided. You know, you ever
Absolutely.
You know, men go through trauma bonding also. And it's tough. It's really, really tough to adjust, because when you go through this type of situation where like a person is abusive and you feel like they'll stop, they'll get over it because they love you, or they tell you that they're sorry, and they'll tell you that they'll never do it again, and they're under too much stress. And then now they're tugging at your emotional heartstrings, and it draws you back in, because they'll tell you, hey, you remember all the good times and all the things that we had, and this just happened, and it didn't used to be like that. This is where they're stringing you back in, and it's scary, because I have to say that I have seen this a lot. You know, there comes a time where you have to cut them strings, though. You have to, because otherwise you will waste a good significant portion of your life dealing with things that you think is love, but it's not. And if a person, let's say a person goes through all their life being told they aren't shit, all their life, nobody's gonna want you. You're not gonna find better than me. I'm all you got. Things like that. Of course, they're gonna fall into the line and believe it because this is all they're hearing. So in them type of relationships, they'll hear those things and they'll fall right into the trap. So you have to cut them strings, because it's never okay. I don't care how much a person loves you, it's never okay, and that person should definitely seek some help, and you should definitely learn to cut yourself. I always tell people this: you're never gonna get better staying in the same place that makes you sick.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But I have a question for you. So all of those are exactly right. All of those examples. And one thing that you did mention, a key element of trauma bond is the cycle. It's cycles and cycles of the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs. But everything that you mentioned, if somebody has been brought up in that chaos, has been brought up to see that those are how a relationship is supposed to be, that is how love is expressed, how would you go about talking to that individual who might be listening to say, honestly, I don't know what a healthy relationship is, so I'm just sticking out with this one? What would you say to that individual?
I would say that's unhealthy and dangerous at the same time. Like, you are accepting abuse because you are afraid of what's out there. You have that person. You have to put yourself first. It's okay to be selfish sometimes. You have to put yourself first. And this is for people, men and women with children. You have to think about them first. You have to think about, there isn't that much love in the world to sit here and let a person beat your brains in because you don't know what else is out there, or you're afraid, and might be the first person that might have showed you some genuine love, or so you think. But you have to think about it. If they take you off this earth, where does that leave your children?
Right. And then you're teaching them the same cycles.
Yep.
So when they get older, they will find it will be easier for them to fall into the same type of trauma bond, because that's what they witnessed.
Right.
That's what they witnessed. And Keisha, I'm throwing it to you. If there's a listener who's sitting here saying, well, that's how I was taught to show love, hitting, pushing, manipulation. That's how I was taught to show love, or that's how it was expressed to me as a child. So this is all I know. So I'm connected to this person in that way. What would you say to them?
I would say, I would suggest them seeking wise counsel. Sometimes going in for counseling will definitely help that person to identify that this isn't healthy. If that's what they believe to be true, when someone from the outside, like a friend or a family member, say, hey, this is not good, they may not be able to see this. And unfortunately, we don't want it to get to the point where somebody's no longer on this earth, or they're in the hospital or in jail. But so I would say I would really recommend them going in for counseling. Seek some wise counsel to help them process this and understand why they feel like this, because this is all they've seen with growing up or dealing with in all previous relationship or the last one. Why do they think it's okay? They need to be able to understand that, as well as understand what a healthy relationship is. They may not know exactly from their personal experience just yet, but they need wise counsel to know what it looks like. Even if it's a form of a support group. I mean, it doesn't have to be real therapeutic where you're just one-on-one with a therapist, but just even joining a support group.
Right. right? Having an awesome support system
Yes.
of friends or cousins or family to say, what's going on here? And here's some signs too for people who might be like, whoa, what? I need to kind of look at what's going on here. Like Big Smash said, cycles. These are cycles. It's an never ending story. There are ups and downs, ups and downs. There's obsessive anxiety over the relationship as a whole. You can never really seem to get into a quiet, peaceful place, or peaceful feels weird. If it's peaceful or if nothing's going on, it doesn't feel right. That should be a first indicator. That should be a first indicator. Denying or ignoring the red flags, seeing that something isn't right or somebody bringing it to your attention and you minimize it, deny it, or act like it doesn't exist. And not having boundaries, having
Right.
boundaries between the two,
And-
and ignoring your own needs. Go ahead.
And you know what I think too? I think people try to love the red flags out of a person.
Right. Yes.
You
They
know,
feel
Yes.
like they can change them.
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. They so enamored that they feel like, man, look, this is just a phase. He's gonna get through this. She's gonna get through this. This is just a phase. They're gonna, in the end, ultimately love me to death. And that's the key word. They're gonna love you to death because you are an enabler in that situation. So I think people feel like you can do anything, you could change anybody, and it's scary because I'll tell you this, if you have been with somebody for 10 years and all they do is mentally, verbally, physically abuse you, and then you are scared to start over because you have literally gave this person 10 years of your life that you cannot get back. So there's a thing like they're saying, I'd rather deal with the devil that I know
Right.
instead of going to deal with the devil that I don't. Because I know what this person is going to do. I know what this person is capable of. I know how they move and how they operate. This new person trying to love me, I don't know nothing about them.
Right.
You know, I trusted this person for 10 years and it didn't work out. So now I'm finna go give the next person 10 years and that don't work out. And then the next doesn't work out. So basically that's a cycle too.
It sure is.
So you rather stay at home and deal with what you're dealing with because you're afraid that the next is going to be worse. And I get that that's a good fear, but you also don't know what you're going to get till you get out there and do it. You don't know that you don't know if you're going to get this job unless you get up and go apply. You don't know, you don't know if you're going to like this person unless you get up and try. You don't know if you're going to have kids unless you get up and try. So these are things where you have to apply yourself. And dealing with somebody just because they buy you things or they give you things or they gave you kids or they gave you a nice home, they brought your car, they give you money. Yeah, those are dope things to have, but does it entitle you to taking the physical abuse that it comes with? You're basically selling yourself, if I can say that.
And another
Right.
thing about that too is anybody who's in a supportive role, in a supporting role for somebody going through that, and you want to really get these individuals help and get them to safety, you have to understand that no one's going to do anything unless it's from them. It has to originate from that individual. And that could be some of the most damaging influences on a connection, to see a family member or a loved one who are in a trauma bond in a relationship, and you're trying to give them so much support. You can do this, you can come here, you can stay with me, but they won't leave. And or disengage from that connection. We can't force anyone to do anything. It has to come from that individual. And sometimes it takes that person hitting rock bottom before they finally see, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Now, we're going to go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole here, and we're going to talk about the addictive one. Now, and for anyone listening, here's an example of what that might look like on a very superficial level. Have you ever been in a relationship, and hopefully I'm not telling on myself, have you ever been in a relationship when things are just everything's going great and it's just boring, and you just one day just want to argue? Like, I just feel like I need to argue.
The toxic relationship.
No, I'm not. No, not toxic acting like 100%, but like one day you just wake up and be like, you know what? Nah.
Like your life is too boring and you just need to start an argument just to spice it up. Yeah, that's
spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's on the superficial level. That's the superficial. Now, when this goes into the manipulation, the lying, the psychological abuse, the physical, that's when it's an issue. But here's the problem. It's a mutual type of codependency on the high. So let me slow that down again. A mutual codependency on the high, when you have the highs and lows from that, right? Because a lot of people I've worked with say, yeah, we might fight like cats and dogs, but that makeup sex is just as intense. That's not healthy. That is not healthy. But it's something that you hear on a regular basis. Have either one of you ever had a friend or a family member say that?
Yes. Yes. I've heard that several times, family member and friends.
Yeah, so it's like that's an example of that addictive quality to some trauma bonds, to where they are addicted to the chemical release that they are receiving when they do have the highs and lows in the relationship. So when you think of it in that way, if you were talking to somebody who is in that situation, they might not even realize that it's a trauma bond at all. They might just see this as just that this is just their type of relationship. Yeah, we fight, we both fight, and we have makeup sex, and that's just how it is. How would you talk to them? How would you talk to that person? I'm gonna go to you first, Big Smash.
I think I've been in that situation.
Do tell.
I think it comes with, experience that you had in your life. Like I used to get, oh, you're too nice, you're too perfect, you're too good for me. I've never been treated like this. So I'm only going off the actions of what I'm used to having. And we argued and we fought and we did this every day in my last relationship. So naturally, when you're used to that, that's what you're always going to expect. And there would be days that I would sit back and I would just be doing something like playing the game. And then all of a sudden, an argument would come out of nowhere. And I used to always think like, yo, I'm just sitting here playing the game. I'm chilling. We good. It's like, I guess playing the game triggered something within her, sometimes what I learned is sometimes you don't even have to be doing something to trigger somebody. It could be a normal everyday activity to you, and to them it's a trigger. Well, my last, he used to throw Xbox controllers at me. It could be just little simple things, that you have no knowledge of, but it triggers. And for that, I always tell people, look, man, if you think arguing with somebody is the key to happiness, then you need to be by yourself. You need to take a step back and adjust.
And find out why you think that.
Exactly. A lot of people break up with somebody and then jump in a relationship. And then break up with somebody and then jump in a relationship. Like no healing time at all. So it's scary to run into a person who's triggered by toxicity. That's what I call it. That Baby Boy and Yvette type of
Right. That's a
toxic
great example.
that is
That's a good
attractive to
example.
them. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people go through that because of the makeup sex. Like, yeah, I know the makeup sex gonna be a hit because we into it. I kicked him out. I burned up all his stuff and all that, and they come right back to each other. Y'all know that couple that's always arguing on social media, but they always gonna be together no matter how bad they argue. It's like crying wolf. Yeah, you'll get us to come pay attention to it the first couple times, but after that, it's like, that's like, for example, my sister baby daddy used to fight her. They used to fight each other. And she would call me. Now I'm heated. Don't call me because I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to do all this when it comes to mine. And I would fight this dude, and then the next day they would be back together.
Yep.
So it got to the point of, please stop calling me. Stop calling me. If you gonna keep going back to him, stop calling me. I love you, but there's no point in me getting my blood pressure up, coming to fight this dude just for y'all to end up back together. So yeah, I had to separate, and anybody that wants to talk to me, yes, I'll talk to you about it. Once or twice, 3 times, whatever. But if I feel like my message is falling on deaf ears for you to seek some type of counseling, some type of understanding, something, and it's falling on deaf ears, then I'm not the person to give you advice anymore. Because I can only say so much. You're going to make up the mind that you want. But yes, if you are out here in those type of relationships, my advice to you would be to get somebody and sit down and talk to them and explain, why do you like this? Because you know it's toxic when you got to tell somebody, we was just doing good. Right. We was just doing good. So I have experienced that, and it's a scary feeling, when everything you do triggers an argument. Right. It's time for you to get away, honestly, because there's no good that comes out of that. There's no good that comes out of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You kick me out, now I'm moving back in. You kick me out, now I'm moving. Yeah, I don't get how people do it.
Right.
All it took was for my wife to kick me out one time, and I realized, hey, these streets are not for me. So I'm cool. I don't want to do the back and forth. So I never understood that. What do you? I just think sometimes it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to be without that person. I know a lot of people be like, oh, I can't live without you. Yeah. But if it's not helping you live and be better, then you're going to have to.
Exactly. And I tell people all the time, look at how many good days you have versus the bad. If you have more bad days than good with this individual, there's a problem. Like, we're not even talking about the emotional pull. Let's look at facts. Are you actually happy? And one element, before we go into the next topic, because we're going to get even deeper into this rabbit hole, I was talking to a gentleman, and he was even explaining to me how trauma bonds can originate from mommy and daddy issues. And the way it was explained was being in a trauma bonded type of relationship with somebody who neglected you, who ignored you, who treated you disrespectfully, but you did everything you could to be seen, to be heard, to be loved by that person. And you just wouldn't stop fighting to be in that relationship. And it's because you're recognizing you had to do the same thing with your father or with your mother. So that trauma bond is originating from your parental relationship. And I had to do all of this to get attention from my mom and my dad. And now I'm seeing the same behaviors in my partner. So I must have to do the same thing here. And that really hit me at a deep level. Because I'm like, I did not look at that mommy and daddy issues being a trauma bond. But in all actuality, in the simplest terms, a trauma bond is any type of traumatic event that bonds you to somebody else in an unhealthy way, and it repeats in cycles. So having mommy and daddy issues, absolutely. Because you're looking at that individual and saying, I had to do this and fight so hard to get noticed as a child. I'm doing the same thing with my partner. That is something for people out there to definitely pay attention to. And that's going to segue into our next question. Do you feel external issues within the Black community can increase the likelihood of our community having trauma bonds, with with a large number of fathers not in the home and single parent moms and things of that nature? Do you, and just how, just the Black community and the challenges we have, period, do you think that could increase the likelihood of seeing trauma bonds in our relationships? I'm gonna start with you, Keisha, and then Big Smash. I'm giving you some time to think on that so you can take it next.
I would say yes, especially for women who didn't grow up in the home with their father. Many times when they do get in relationships, they not only look to their partner as being, okay, this is my man, but he's also like a dad. And I think that's where sometimes when it's an abusive relationship and the man may talk hard or demand things, I think they kind of get it twisted where this is not your father, honey. This is not how he's supposed to talk to you. This is your partner. So I think it does play a role, especially within our race as African Americans, because, we do have a high rate of single family homes, just like other races too, but definitely, with African Americans. So I think that is something that's major when it comes down to the trauma bonds, when we're looking at, I guess, single family homes. So I think that's a really big deal.
Absolutely. I agree. And how about you, Big Smash? Do you think the external issues that Black Americans face on an everyday basis can increase the likelihood of us developing trauma bonds within our own relationships?
I actually think I think we add to it. And I think because of the circumstances and the things that we go through, it only makes it worse. There is no good jobs. There is no good nobody wants to work, nobody wants to do anything. So of course, when you're broke, angry, hungry, fed up with everything that's going on, I think naturally we take issues out that we want to take out on the world on each other. So I think these issues make it worse. When you want to fight the world, and you want to fight the world, you want to get your lick back, and knowing that you can't, you go home and you take it out on your loved ones or the ones that love you. So I don't know. My thinking about that is a little different. Like, as a Black man in America right now in this day and age, you feel angry, you feel afraid, you feel tired, you feel fed up. So you have to. Some people take their anger and their emotions out on the wrong people, because it makes them feel good at the moment.
Right.
Like, I can't whoop my boss's ass because I'll lose my job, but let me go home and fight my kids, or fight my woman, or fight my man, or let me go home and do these things because this is my safe place. This is where I can get away with these things because this person's never going to leave me. These are the thoughts that, go through. And like I said, I've seen it. We've all seen it where a woman didn't want a guy anymore, and then the guy shows up at the job and shoots and kills everybody. Like, it's that those are signs of a troubled environment. If you show up to work with a black eye, naturally everybody's gonna ask you, what's going on, what's wrong. And then if you say some stuff like, oh, I fell, yeah, I'm going to think something is going on and I need to pull you to the side and help you figure it out. So I think these problems that we go through, our culture in particular, I think the problems that we go through only make it worse. You know, I say the same about the violence and everything in the world right now. It only makes it worse. It doesn't, trauma never gets better.
No, it doesn't.
Like if you break your leg, you're always susceptible to breaking that leg or re-injuring that leg. It's never gonna get better. It's never gonna be the same as you had it before. You know, you're gonna either walk with a limp or it's always gonna be something different. So trauma never gets better, you know.
And it's definitely something that we have to understand to be able to recognize. And that's why I wanted to have the conversation. And another question is the culture. Is culture. So let's think about some of, even in today's society, social media, in the music, in the movies, where sometimes some of these trauma bonds are glorified. Like you just gave an example of about Baby Boy, that movie. Mm-hmm. Do we think some culture, some songs, movies, just how people view it could be something that supports trauma bonds? Like there was a time where I'm a Marvel fan, so I'll use Joker and Harley Quinn. That's a horrendous trauma bond, but people were like, I want to be in a relationship like that. And I'm like, you kind of don't. You really don't. But then you'll see some younger individuals, teenagers who will listen to these songs, who watch these celebrities and think that that's a healthy relationship, that they're fighting and arguing and doing all of this. That's what they're looking for in their own relationship. So do you all think that the culture supports trauma bonds, like it's the thing to do? And that's for anyone.
I think no, I was just going to say unawarely, I think they do. You know, the culture do, society do unawarely, because they make it look like, ooh, that's a good thing. You know, like in the end with Baby Boy, okay, they're having another baby. They're having a picnic. They're happy. So yeah, I think unawarely they do.
And how about you, Big Smash? What do you think? How do you think the culture plays a role in trauma bonds?
Think about it. Music. They tell you it's okay not to love these women, not to love your woman, not to do this, not to do that. Movies, they depict our culture all messed up and tell us, like movies like Baby Boy, they tell us that this is the normal average black relationship. TV itself, they tell us stuff like Empire and all this, like this is toxicity is love. Even your neighbors, your people that you know that you're around. Oh, he loved me, he gonna get it together. She loved me, she gonna get it together. I absolutely think culture assists in trauma bonds. I truly do, because we look at social media. When we were locked up for COVID, what was everybody was doing? Social media was the spot.
Yep.
You know, everybody, they from in-home concerts. You know, you had artists doing in-home concerts. You had everybody with a podcast, everybody on TikTok, everybody, like social media racked our brains. So if this is all that you see that's being speculated and thrown out there, then that's what adds to it, because now you're clogging up the mind. You're clogging up the mind. You're telling me that it's okay. See, the movies and the TV have people thinking that this is love and there is no consequences. The man always gets his woman in the end, blah, blah, blah. But in real life, they don't tell you those actions, the beating on your mate, the lying, the abuse and the disrespect, all that stuff has consequences.
Mhm.
So yes, the culture, the society, all of that plays a huge part in trauma bonding, but ultimately it's up to the couple that's involved.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Like I said earlier, it has to come from the individual to leave. And when there's children involved in between the trauma bond, because it's the back and forth. That's what the unique characteristic of that trauma bond is. It's the back and forth. So when you have kids involved, they're gonna see this, and it's back and forth. It's back and forth to where they're learning this behavior as normal. They're learning that to receive love, I need to act a certain way, and it's not healthy. So it's definitely something we have to look at and hold some accountability. When we, because I tell people all the time, it's not going to be huge agencies that stop this type of thing. It's going to be the small groups, the intimate conversations you have with your friend or family member who is exhibiting these behaviors and saying this is not healthy. So definitely culture, definitely I think the external issues play a definite role in trauma bonding. Now, a question, and I'm gonna start with Big Smash first and then cycle back to Keisha. Do you feel a couple can heal past a trauma bond? And if you do, how?
No, you
He's
can
like, that's
try.
easy.
I mean, you can definitely try, but like I said, once a leg or arm is broke, it's you are susceptible to re-injuring or making it even worse. So, yes, but I will say, in 1 out of every 10, you have the option to heal from it, but I don't think you ever really fully heal from being abused, being punched in the face. If I get punched in the face 10 times, it's physical damage that's going to be hindering forever. It's not going to go away no matter how many times you love me or how many times we go to the counseling. All of that, yes, it'll help. But in the back of my mind, it's always going to be, let me do this right so I don't get hit. Because I remember being that kid that I knew if I did something bad, I was going to get in trouble. So it had to set in eventually, like, yo, let me just do everything they want me to do the first time so I don't have to come back and do it again. So I don't have to get a whooping. So I don't have to get in trouble and get punishment. So let me do everything right the first time. But now you don't heal from a trauma bond because now you're only operating out of fear.
And I'm
Mhm.
glad you brought that up. I'm
True.
glad you brought that up. And I'm not going to jump too far deep in it. So that's a whole nother conversation. But our families, black families, we are known for whipping, spankings, all that good stuff, right? And like you just said, you were like, let me do this right so I won't get hit. So if you have a child growing up in that, and I've heard multiple times, this is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you before you get hit. Not me personally, but I've heard stories like that, right? Or I'm doing this because I love you. So it's a behavior that can be taught, you know? So that's something else to think about as well. I'm not going to really go too much deeper on that topic because that's a whole nother topic in itself. But it's just another example on how some of these behaviors are learned as an expression of love. And that is terrifying, even just to say it that way. But how about you, Keisha? Do you think you can heal past a trauma bond?
I think so. I think it will take, I know it would take work. Unfortunately, I was in one domestic violence relationship when I was in college, and it impacted me big time when it came down to dating, and moving on to other relationships. It definitely takes work. It takes um, even after putting all the work in and getting past it, it still takes being mindful when you go into a relationship. You have to be careful not to bring, I guess, like I was saying earlier, the residue into that relationship, especially when it's a person that really wants to love you. So I think that's work that has to be done as far as with that individual have to put the work in, because if not, going into a relationship that's healthy, they wouldn't even know. I mean, in the back of their mind, they'll think, oh, this person may do the same thing. So, and unfortunately, and I can speak from this too, when you have dealt with something like domestic violence and you have this trauma bond, you seem to be a magnet for men in the future, or vice versa, women in the future. It's like you're a magnet for these type of people to come along. So it takes that person. This is why it's important to get past the trauma bond. So you'll be able to identify the early stages, the red flags, and know that, no, this is not something that's good for me. This is not healthy, and be able to walk away from it in the beginning stages, and not stick around thinking that you can help someone change, or or it's your fault, or this is how he loves, this is how I'm used to being loved. Like, I actually have a girlfriend where if the guy she dates don't jack her up, she looks at him as being a soft guy, like he's a softie, that she thinks that's what love is.
And that's where the discussion has to happen, because there's so many people out here who think that, in, like I said, the culture and what they see on TV, what you hear in songs, that's what they think. And then if you get somebody who's treating you with respect and care, he's soft. He's not manly. And yeah, man, when I think of a man, I think of him protecting me. And that's on all fronts, emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually. If you're doing something to damage me, then you're not being a man, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So we're approaching our hour, and I just want to leave some final statements before I pass it to Big Smash, and he can tell everybody where to find him. Here's some clues. If you're having to keep some secrets of what your mate's doing to you, or fear that if somebody found out what the person was doing to you, they would question it, that's a sign. If you're denying things that are happening, if you are not feeling safe when you're with this individual, if this person is gaslighting, manipulating, and lying, because it's all of it's not always physical. Some of the most intense trauma bonds are psychological. It's in your head. And like I said, if you're in the previous example that we talked about, where the trauma bonds originating from a childhood experience, that's something completely different than the one where you're addicted. You're addicted to it, and there's actually a withdrawal process that you would go through to separate yourself from the person. So it is hard work. It's hard work. You actually have to do the work. But the first step is recognizing you're in one. That's the first step. So I will leave you all with this. If you have questions or further information, because like I said, this is a very deep topic and can get much deeper. But if you have questions or concerns or think you might be in one, you can definitely shoot myself, Keisha, an email, a message, and we will be absolutely happy to connect with you and direct you if need be, if there's a higher level of support that you need. But a trauma bond can last. It can last as long as you want it to last. It can be as dangerous as you want it to be. But the key is understanding that it's not healthy, and that there's a better way to connect with other individuals, not through trauma. So hopefully this helps somebody today, and there was some education that was provided. I'm going to hand the mic back to Big Smash so he can let everybody know where he can be found and where you can connect with him on his platform. So back to you, Big Smash.
Bet the House podcast, we are going to be subscription based for season 8 and beyond. You can find us on Apple Music, Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. We're everywhere. Bet the House 2021 on Instagram. My link tree is linktree.com/bet the house podcast. And always betthehouse.com. I appreciate this platform. Like I said earlier, I love you guys. I love what you're doing. And I will continue to support dope women podcasters. That's been my theme for the day. I just actually did a dope live with women podcasters. So salute to you guys for having me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for your input on this topic. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, this is a topic that needs to be discussed, but really in our community, because when you look at the numbers, our families are being impacted by trauma and violence at a much higher rate than any other race in this country at the moment. So it's definitely conversations that we need to have. I'm so happy that you allowed your time and your talent to be shared with us and everyone who's listening. So thank you so much, and check them out. 200 season, guys. That's crazy.
Yes,
That's crazy.
Congratulations. That's what's up.
Absolutely. And Keisha, do you have any last things you want to say to the listeners before we sign off?
I just want to say I hope this podcast tonight helped everyone. And if you are involved in a situation where you feel yourself in a trauma bond situation, please, seek some wise counsel. Or I hope you have a great support system. If you do, and you have people around you identifying that, hey, this is not good for you, listen to them. We only got one life to live, and we want to live this life, our awesome life. We don't want to live it being miserable. You don't have to. So there is help out there. And I'm hoping that what we talked about and shared on this podcast today helps someone.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And as always, you can find us at www.thelookingglass.fans, our IG page, The Looking Glass Podcast, and also our Facebook group, The Looking Glass Podcast. And check out our playlist on Apple and Spotify, the Rabbit Hole playlist. And for the month of October, I'm also participating in the 30-day Content Creators of Color, or C4, where you will be able to hear multiple podcasters in our community on a daily basis. We'll be dropping episodes daily for the month of October, so definitely check that out as well. And yeah, thanks so much for participating. And again, if you are someone who needs more information or any additional support, I'll have some links in the description box of the podcast, but you can feel free to reach out to us as well. So you all take care, stay safe, and be well.